The Second World War was one of the most violent events in human history, but it was also a period of intense scientific and technological activity, driven by military and strategic necessity, that gave rise to revolutionary inventions that forever changed our way of life. Whether we like it or not, much of technology we have today for our convenience would never have been developed if it had not been for the war. When discussing inventions developed in the war, we usually imagine devices with destructive purposes such as rockets, jet planes, or atomic bombs. But the war also gave rise to technologies that we use every day, and it was precisely one of those technologies that not only changed the course of the war, but also positively affected all homes in the world. Of course, we are talking about the magnetron. But what is it? How does it work? And how did the magnetron change the course of World War II? Join us to find out. A magnetron is a device that transforms electrical energy into electromagnetic energy in the form of microwaves. It was developed towards the end of the 1930s to power the radar using a powerful radio source, several hundred watts, with a centimeter wavelength, which was high frequency for this age. The history of the magnetron dates back to the 1920s, when research into magnetic fields and electric currents in vacuum tubes began to reveal fascinating properties that would pave the way for future advances in microwave technology. Although the concept of an electromagnetic field was nothing new, the most critical advances in microwaves came thanks to two prominent scientists of this era, Albert W. Hull and Henry Tizard. Albert W. Hull was an American physicist and engineer, a pioneer in researching magnetic fields and their influence on vacuum tubes. In the 1920s, Hull conducted groundbreaking experiments exploring how magnetic fields could modify and control the flow of electrons in a vacuum tube. His research laid the theoretical foundations for understanding the interaction between magnetic fields and electric currents, crucial knowledge for the future development of the magnetron. On the other hand, Henry Tizard, a prominent British scientist, also contributed to the scientific landscape of the 1920s. His work focused on studying vacuum tubes and their application in electronic devices. Tizard, like Hull, experimented with the modulation of electric currents in the presence of magnetic fields, opening the door to possible practical applications in high-frequency electronics. Tizard's research into magnetic fields and vacuum tubes generated the seed that gave rise to the idea of the magnetron. Understanding how magnetic fields could modulate and direct electrical currents in a vacuum environment provided the essential theoretical foundation for developing a device capable of generating microwaves. However, at this point, the magnetron concept was still embryonic and needed to be refined and put into practice. World War II, the main impetus for technological development. The crucial impetus for the practical development of the magnetron came during World War II. This was due to the need to know where the enemy was before they attacked, especially in places with many visual obstacles such as mountains, clouds, and fog. Radars were used to solve this need. Unlike modern radars that work with microwaves, older radars relied primarily on vacuum tube-based devices such as radiodiodes. These devices, also known as crystal rectifiers, were based on the property of some semiconductor crystals to allow current to pass in only one direction. Although these radiodiodes allowed the generation of radio waves, they had significant limitations in frequency and power. Vacuum tubes were an integral part of pre-magnetron radars. However, its size, fragility, and the need to maintain an internal vacuum were practical challenges. Additionally, radiodiodes operated at lower frequencies, which limited the resolution and accuracy of radars of the time. In this context, when both sides faced each other, either on the water or in the air, with different vehicles such as ships and airplanes, those with better enemy visibility would have the advantage, mainly when the confrontation occurred at night. Due to the use of radiodiodes, the radars of the time were robust and heavy and could only detect huge vehicles or small vehicles when they were already close. Improvements with the development of the magnetron. The magnetron revolutionized radar technology of the time, overcoming many of the limitations associated with previously used vacuum tubes. Some key improvements that the magnetron brought to radars were higher frequencies. One of the magnetron's most significant contributions was its ability to generate microwaves at much higher frequencies than could be achieved with conventional vacuum tubes. This allowed for more excellent resolution and accuracy in object detection, as microwaves have shorter wavelengths and could detect small vehicles such as airplanes and people. Compactness. The magnetron design allowed it to be built in more compact sizes than vacuum tubes. This feature facilitated the integration of the magnetron into radars of various sizes and applications, especially in vehicles of all kinds: cars, boats, airplanes, etc. Controlled power output. The magnetron could generate microwave pulses with a controlled and stable power output. This significantly improved the radar's ability to transmit reliable signals and receive clear echoes, leading to greater efficiency in detecting objects at long ranges. Two prominent figures led efforts to apply the magnetron in military technology, specifically ground radars. These were Sir Robert Watson-Watt and Sir John Randall. Sir Robert Watson-Watt, a Scottish physicist, was noted as the chief architect of the development of magnetron-based ground radar. In 1935, Watson-Watt and his team developed a functional radar capable of detecting the presence of enemy aircraft. This achievement marked a crucial milestone and demonstrated the viability of the magnetron as a microwave generator in a practical setting. Simultaneously, Sir John Randall, a British physicist, played a crucial role in optimizing the magnetron for implementation in ground-based radars, since it would be responsible for improving the efficiency and stability of the device in military applications. Randall would later be tasked with miniaturizing and perfecting the magnetron design, allowing for its broader and more versatile use on the battlefield in all types of vehicles. Transition to aerial radars. As the war progressed, the need for more efficient and compact radars for aircraft became imperative. Harry Boot and John Randall played crucial roles in this transition, taking the magnetron to new heights of sophistication and portability. Harry Boot, a British physicist, and John Randall substantially improved the magnetron design in 1940, reducing its size and increasing efficiency. This evolution allowed for the successful implementation of the magnetron in airborne radars, providing a significant tactical advantage to Allied forces. Implementing small radars that could be mounted on airplanes was a critical element that completely changed the war's course. The most coveted weapon. Although radar was not considered a weapon, its military use was so effective that many scientists and soldiers considered obtaining information from this device vital, since those with it had a considerable advantage over their enemies. Some events that would have been entirely different if microwave radars had not existed are: Muna Dam attack. In May 1943, during Operation Chastise, known as the Dyke Attack, Royal Air Force pilots used magnetron-based radars to measure the altitude of Lancaster aircraft flying accurately. The use of this new technology allowed Royal Air Force pilots to bomb Muna Dam in the dead of night successfully. Detection of U-boats. Magnetron-based naval radars were crucial in detecting German submarines, U-boats, during the Battle of the Atlantic. The radar's ability to identify targets at long range and in adverse conditions allowed the Allied forces to locate and neutralize underwater threats, contributing to victory in this strategic campaign. Operation Overlord, D-Day. In the planning and execution of the Normandy landings on June 6, 1944, the magnetron played a vital role. Magnetron-based radars were used to track weather conditions, allowing Allied commanders to make informed decisions about the appropriate time to carry out the operation. RAF night attacks. During the RAF's night air raids on Germany, British magnetron-equipped radars were essential in guiding bombers to their targets with greater precision, hampering enemy defenses and improving the effectiveness of the attacks. In these and many other scenarios, microwave radar gave an enormous strategic advantage to the military by allowing them to view objects that were otherwise impossible to see with conventional radar closely. For this reason, one of the main objectives of the German army was to obtain this technology at all costs. However, this was not an easy task, since to prevent this technology from falling into the hands of the enemies, the engineers designed a self-destruct system that was activated once the enemies shot down the aircraft or ships. In this way, if a vehicle with microwave radar fell into enemy hands, the radar would immediately explode so that the enemies would have no chance of capturing it. However, one night, a Sterling bomber with an H-2S type radar on board crashed near Rotterdam. When the German military inspected the aircraft, technicians working for Telefunken discovered the radar completely intact because the explosive system of the self-destruct had failed. When the Germans finally obtained the highly prized device, they realized that this technology was not so new, since they already knew the principle of operation of the magnetron. How the magnetron works. At the heart of the magnetron is a vacuum tube where electrons are released from a hot filament. These negatively charged electrons are moving particles. A strong magnetic field is applied around the electrons. This magnetic field forces them to move in circular orbits. The magnetron has resonant cavities, like small compartments in its structure. These cavities are arranged to match the frequency of the microwaves we want to generate. Electrons in circular orbits generate energy pulses in microwaves when passing through these cavities. This is because the natural oscillation frequency of the electrons is synchronized with the frequency of the microwaves we're trying to produce. It's like when you push a swing at the right time to make it swing higher. The energy generated in the resonant cavities is concentrated and then emitted through an antenna that releases the energy in high-frequency electromagnetic waves. Although the Germans knew the science behind the magnetron, the main difference was that this device had been implemented in almost all British vehicles. In contrast, almost no German vehicles had it on board. While one side gave the magnetron a lot of importance and invested time, money, and people in its development, improvement, and implementation, the other side did not give it any importance, which made a big difference. The magnetron is a tool and not as a weapon. During the development of the magnetron radar of World War II, Raytheon hired the best engineers to improve the military device. One of those engineers was Percy Spencer. The story goes that in 1945, Spencer was working on developing magnetron-based microwave radar. One day, near a working magnetron, he noticed a chocolate in his pocket melted unusually quickly. Intrigued by this phenomenon, he decided to conduct more experiments. Spencer placed corn kernels near the magnetron and watched them explode into popcorn. Next, he tried an egg, which exploded in his face when he pierced it to cook it. Thanks to these experiments, Spencer demonstrated that the microwaves generated by the magnetron could heat food quickly and efficiently. Based on these discoveries, in 1947, Raytheon launched the Radar Range, the first commercial microwave oven. This device was initially large and expensive, mainly for commercial or industrial use. However, over time, the technology became more accessible and evolved into the smaller, more affordable appliances in our homes today. Finally, after years of war that ravaged the world, the invention of the magnetron, which initially had military use, resulted in one of the most common and valuable household appliances in the modern world. Now we want to hear your opinion. Did you know all this about the magnetron? Let us know your opinion in the comments.